You're with Harold Doucet. We have Reverend Reginald Trainer in with us this morning, and I'm Anton Ghetto with It's Your City, the Breeze Radio 96.9 on the FM. This morning we want to be discussing some of the items or concerns that individuals have had in reference to the Edison Square housing project. This morning we have Reginald Training here with us this morning, and he wants to let the citizens know exactly how the residents in the area feel. You know, for some reason, the administration is trying to give the impression that those residents do not want the housing project or don't want a housing project built for citizens. But Reginald has said time and time again, and citizens and council members, that they're not against housing. They're just against building a housing area within that community. And as we stated on the last program, you know, there are people that have been living there for years and then decades. So we want to make sure that those people's voices get heard, and you get the idea of truly how they feel. So I'm going to say first, good morning, Reginald.
Good morning, Mr. Doucet.
And what do you think the citizens need to know about how you residents feel about being forced to obtain an attorney just to see that y'all rights are protected and that y'all have the opportunity to oppose that housing development being placed into y'all community?
First of all, good morning, Port Arthur. I am a resident. I reside at 3514 East 12th Street in the city of Port Arthur, Texas. The question that was asked to me, how do we feel? Well, as a resident, as a neighbor, we are very upset because we elected officials to look out for the best of our interests. Seems to me as though there is a power of greed. It definitely has nothing to do with senior citizens 62 years of old, and it has nothing to do with putting a residence there. If you would have had it in your backyard, you would at least want someone to come and talk to you about it. All we ask the city mayor and the council members to give us an upfront of what's going on. They have played politics, they have got behind our backs and did conniving and sneaky little things. And let me tell you something. Every person that lives in that 200 area of that project is mostly against it. They've even went far and beyond to have other members come back and change their vote after everything should have been closed. We don't want it. We've asked them numerous of times to tell them that we don't want it. And my opinion on Mr. Doucet is that why is it so hard to accept what we don't want? Somebody is really, really pushing this, and you got to ask yourself why. For the mayor and the councilmen to put themselves and make it a suicide political issue, it makes me think it has to be all about a dollar. Let me tell you something. One thing about us on 12th Street or just the citizens of Port Arthur, we all have some part of education. Every time you say 1 and 1, it doesn't necessarily mean it's 2. We're looking for a verdict to keep that project off of 12th Street, to keep it out of our community. Now, it's sad that the citizens have to go to court. The fight was their own. The fight was their own. I never voted for George Bush, but if you notice my quote, I will protect my property by all means necessary. And I'll speak for the citizens because they have elected me as a spokesperson, and we're going to go to court Thursday on the 24th in Judge Floyd, Donald Floyd's court, and we're going to be there at exactly 2 o'clock, and we're asking that you get behind this project because today is us, tomorrow could be you.
Well, you get a good idea on how the residents feel. And once again, you're listening to the Breeze, KSAP 96.9 on the FM. The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of our studio guest, caller, and host, and does not necessarily reflect the views and opinion of this station or its management. Once again, the breeze. Chiming in on the portion where Reginald speaks of the elected officials elected to stand up and protect the rights of the citizens. Let me expound on that a little bit more, since I had the opportunity to serve on council and understand what we do as council members. You know, our foremost duties and responsibilities is to citizens and our city. You know, a personal agenda or special interest group should not be anything that we cater to if it's not in the best interest of our citizens and our city. And the citizens in the Edison Square are upset because they have a process in place, and the process was done to its fullest and according to the procedures and policies outlined in our ordinance and code and also state laws. And it's so ironic that in this particular case, so far I have not been able to find any other instance where the planning and zoning requests have went before the planning and zoning board, and planning and zoning made recommendations to council, and council tried amending the request in this type fashion. And that says a lot to why the citizens are outraged in the Edison area. And as Reginald said, it's not about just the Edison housing community. It's the idea that we have citizens who live in an area who have stood up for their rights and their desires within their community, to only have elected officials show reckless conduct and not adhere to their desires and their wishes by one instituting procedures or process that had never been implemented before, and finding different ways to not adhere to the procedures and policies. You know, it's not a big concern here in Port Arthur about the Edison Square. What the citizens of Port Arthur need to stop and think about: what if it was your neighborhood?
Yes.
You know, we need to understand. We need to do what's right. If it was your neighborhood, would you want it? And if you had a process not to have it, and you go through the process and it doesn't work, how would you feel about your form of government? I read an article here in the paper this weekend, and one of the statements made was, you know, we should not blame the Tea Partiers or the Republicans or the Democrats. We should blame Americans for what our government just went through with this shutdown, for the simple reason those people that shut this government down are people we as Americans elected. Well, you know, I felt real good about being here in the city. Didn't have to worry about our city being shut down. But if we're going to condone reckless conduct by our elected officials that start denying a group of citizens their rights as taxpayers in this city, then what we need to do is we need to take a second look at who we elect. We need to take a serious look on the conduct of our elected officials. We need to stop thinking about elections we need to start thinking about if individuals do not help us, then they don't need to be in office. We shouldn't have to wait for an election to get them out of office. We have a caller. Go ahead, caller.
Mr. Doucet, good morning to you. I enjoyed the information that I get. I was thinking, how about Franklin site? I don't never hear nothing about Franklin, but the location of Franklin was one of the comments there.
Well, you know, they talked about Franklin, but what the residents around that area and around any of these areas must understand, there's a process for anybody to rezone areas from single families to multifamily. And that process is simply the process that the Edison Square community have went through. And if the judge doesn't see fit to uphold and protect them, then I feel that we need to take it to the next level, because someone gonna understand that the process has been tainted. The process is no longer what it should be, because the process is not for someone to develop an area. The process is to protect the individual rights who live in and around that area. Now, there may be developers who are interested in these vacant school property simply for the reason that in single family property is a lot cheaper than what you would pay for light commercial. So they looking at saving $1, but saving $1 at what expense? At what cost? Why would anyone want to even think about building a housing project in a community that's zoned single family from the beginning? From the beginning. Why would you even think about doing that when you know you should be building it in an area zoned light commercial? So hopefully when this is over with, we won't have to worry about any developer trying to build multi-family complexes on any of the remaining school property that are vacant, caller. And also, it's a good time for the people around the Wheatley School in Alvestra, Peace School in Port Acres, and Franklin's school ground. It's a good time for those citizens to get involved in this particular case, because you may be next if this cannot be stopped. You know, if people don't understand that. And it's a fact that that site wasn't the only site for that housing project. You know, that was alternate site. They should have went to the alternate site from the beginning. When they found out citizens opposed it, you should have moved to the alternate site. But when you feel that you have individuals who's going to disregard policies and procedures and ordinance, then there's a tendency to not want to do what is right, but do what you want. So at this time, I'll have Anton Goodo to give some comments. He's been following this pretty closely. And what do you think about it, Anton?
Well, first of all, Mr. Doucet, I'd like to say good morning to you, gentlemen. As director of the Port Arthur Business and Community Leadership Change, I'd like to say that we do have a method to fight this type of misgovernment. You can join the Port Arthur Business Community Leadership Change. Go to our website at portarthurbcl.wix.com, fill out a survey, join our group, and you'll also have access to videos that will substantiate what these guys are saying. You'll have access to videos such as when the mayor when they had those names added, when they went out and got more names, and they were advised by the TML and the city's legal department that the city could end up in litigation. But they went on and took the names in anyway, and where are we now? In litigation. Okay, so these guys aren't just saying things, and the problem we have as a political watchdog, we have a problem with the process that they didn't follow due process. It seems that the citizens, Mr. Trainer, and the people in that neighborhood did what they had to do according to the laws, according to rules and regulations, and our government shoved the project down their throats. That's the type of stuff that we don't appreciate, and we should do something about it. If you're on Facebook, you can go to PA Politics and get all the information, videos, links to all the videos, just to keep up with what's going on. Because the Port Arthur News does not always cover the issue thoroughly. And sometimes I suspect the truthfulness of their information also.
Okay, once again, you're listening to the Breeze Radio, KSAP 96.9 on the FM. If you wish to comment or express any concerns on the topic today, the Edison Housing Project, or you have a question for myself or any of the guests, Reginald Trainer or Anton Ghetto, feel free to call in. The telephone number is area code 409-982-0247. 409-982-0247. With that, we're going to take a 2-minute break with It's Your City. With It's Your City, The Breeze, KSAP 96.9 FM on the radio dial. We have in the studio this morning Reginald Trainer, the spokesman for the citizens around the Edison Square where the proposed housing project is to be built, and Mr. Anton Ghetto, our community activist, and also the president of the Port Arthur Business and Community Leaders for Change. And basically, it's a political action group that's getting involved in our city, not just in government, but in all phases of our city, to make Port Arthur a better city. When we left, we were talking about the project and how it impacted on the people within the community and the process that was used. What we'll move to now is the meeting being held today at City Hall at 4 o'clock. The meeting today is going to be requesting council to approve hiring a private firm to defend the city in this particular case. The reason being the city attorney has been subpoenaed as a witness by the attorney for the residents. However, the city still has two licensed attorney left, but they are seeking to have council to approve them hiring a firm out of Houston to defend the city against its citizens. Reginald, what you think about that?
Port Arthur. Stop and think. We are the citizens of the Edison Square had to go out and purchase our own attorney. But here it is, the city that done wrong is asking you to pay for it, for them to stand up for their wrongs. I just can't believe that they think that we're that ignorant. There's no way in the world that your city attorney already gave you advice to not to do it, but you want to go ahead and do what you want to do. Now you done got your hand caught in the cookie jar, and you want Brother Trainer to pay for that too. Well, yes, I'm mad about it, and we're going to continue to fight for it, because guess what? As a little boy, I was always taught 2 wrongs and not make a right. And you caught, stand up, and take the punishment like you're going to get.
Okay, you get the view of the head spokesman for the residents in the Edison area pertaining to their thoughts of the city council today holding a special meeting in reference to And we have a caller. Caller, you on the air?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Where is the alternate place for the senior citizen apartment?
They never really stated the alternate place, but there were alternate sites during the time I was on council when the discussions first started arising about this particular complex. There were mentioned that there were alternate sites. Specifically, they didn't say exactly where the site was, but it was mentioned that there was an alternate site. Did
And
that?
that was one question that I needed an answer to. And the next thing that I want to say while on the air, and I'll be going, that I heard someone say that we don't even have 125 seniors that would be moving into those apartments. And I don't know the person that said that. Evidently he don't live in Port Arthur, and evidently he's not 60 years old, because I do know I could name about 50, but I don't know everybody. But we need it, and I hope we get it someday in Port Arthur, not out on 365.
Well, in reference to your statement there, what a lot of citizens need to understand is when you start talking about building a complex for public housing for elderly, and that's my biggest problem with that is someone thinks that it's only for Port Arthur residents.
It's not. I know that.
Okay, so the people on that list may be coming in and taking the housing that eventually, if we had someone on Port Arthur that needs to move into it, it would be once again filled. Because if you look at the housing complexes or projects we have here, O.W. Collins, the Legacy was the latest one they built, Heatherbrook, and Timber Creek. Those are housing units that were titled for elderly. In fact, I lived on Lake Arthur when they were proposing to build the Legacy. I lived right across the street from where it was built. And we objected to building it there because we had nothing but single family homes. And they told us it was going to be for seniors, it wasn't going to be a lot of traffic because people are old, and it was going to be a nice complex, and it is. It is a nice complex, real manicured and kept up, but the fact is, they didn't move just seniors in there. And housing, when they build the complexes, they're not going to let apartments stay empty because you don't have elderly. They're going to fill them. So basically, you keep filling these housing complexes up, just like the people here in Port Arthur. We have people on Port Arthur on the housing list for Section 8. They're on the housing list for public housing from Port Arthur residents. But they have people that's on that list ahead of them that doesn't live in the city of Port Arthur. And when the housing become available, those people are going to go in first. So when we talk about housing, if you're talking about housing for our citizens in Port Arthur, it will have to be a developer that develops probably out their own cost where they could determine that it's only going to be for a senior citizen and take senior citizens to qualify to live here. But when you talk about the government and you talk about federal and state dollars, there's not going to be a lot of discrimination because those laws are set up for individuals, not just one resident of that city. So, I'm against anything that someone try to tell me it's going to be just for this group of people because I haven't seen it yet. So it really doesn't help our citizens here in Port Arthur.
so much for you coming.
Thank you for calling in. And thank you for your comment. Very good question and very good comment. Appreciate that. You have a nice day.
You too.
Back to the attorney, Anton, as political action group, you know, how do you all feel about that thought of having taxpayers to pay to get a firm out in Houston to come and defend the city against its citizens?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that certain people on council acted recklessly. They acted knowing that it was not the right thing to do. They were advised by the TML and by their own legal department not to do something. They did it anyway. Citizens like Brother Trainer, he's getting hit 3 times. He's paying for his own attorney. He's paying his tax dollars are paying for a legal section of our government that they won't use to defend the city. And then he's also going to have to pay for whatever company they hire out of Houston with his tax dollars. Okay, and when you're looking at the average citizen that does not live, that's not involved in the lawsuit, we're paying twice. You know, they're going to talk about it today at 4 o'clock at the City Hall, whether they're going to use up to $10,000 or so to hire a firm out of Houston, when we're already paying for the legal department here at the city. Why not use them? And also, my personal feeling, those that acted recklessly and that got the city in this mess should be paying for the attorney themselves individually.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, you brought up a good point. I never thought about that, whereby the residents in Edison are paying 3 times, and when you think about it, the tax dollars actually amount to that. You know, them paying taxes and them they having to pay for a lawyer to defend their rights, then their tax dollars that they pay the city contributing to the salary of our legal department, and the tax dollars that they pay in, you're gonna take and pay another firm out of Houston. I guess that is a tricky way. I guess when you fighting a battle and you getting hit by 3 sides, ain't but one side, you better stay against the wall if you won't get knocked out.
I guess so.
Okay.
No weapon.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. And once again, you're listening to The Breeze, KSAP 96.9 FM on the dial. And with that, we're going to take a 2-minute break, and we'll be back in 2 minutes with The Breeze, KSAP 96.9 FM on the dial. We're talking about the Edison Square Project, housing project. The city's meeting today to vote on accepting, hiring, contracting an attorney out of Houston to defend the city in the case. And also, we're talking about the decision and the impact it had on the residents who also had to attain their own their own attorney. Well, you know, during the break, we were just throwing it around and discussing it, you know, and when you start taking a look at the attorney and you ask the question, if the city attorney tells the city council, TML recommended that we not accept these letters. If council choose to accept these letters, council will leave in the city in a position and to be in litigation. Well, those individuals with their reckless conduct decided to disregard everything that the city attorney advised them to do, which was based on the advice she received from Texas Municipal League, TML. It's so ironic. They did not listen to the advice that she received from TML, but supposedly the attorney that they're proposing to hire was recommended by TML, the Texas Municipal League. That goes to tell you that we're only interested in taking advice when we want. And unless we're in a bind, we don't need the advice. Citizens, you need to really pay attention to the conduct of our elected officials. This is only one that has surfaces, and I think this one surfaced for the simple reason that this group of citizens refused to just take it lying down and decide to fight. I'm quite sure that some decisions that we're making as council are happening in this same form, because once individuals feel that if we have 5 votes, that's all it's take in order to do what we want. When you start using a majority vote and it's not for the good of the people and it is not for the good of the city, you will find yourself in this predicament. And unless something changes, this is not going to be the last time you hear litigation, because this type of conduct is reckless, and when decisions by our elected officials show so little regard for a group of citizens within our city, we have a problem. The same as when that space shuttle was going down, the last word they said was, Houston, we have a problem. Well, Port Arthur, beware. We have a problem. Now, we're talking about the hearing today. There's going to be a hearing on the 24th, in which is going to be at Donald Floyd's office, and they're going to hear whether this injunction should be permanent or whether he will remove the temporary injunction and allow the complex to be built. Reginald, what you have?
Well, I know Judge Floyd, Curtis, and Beaumont, we gather the residents as we speak to go out there. But we're asking for your prayers, and we're asking that you will look beyond whatever that you've heard and put yourself in a predicament that the residents of Edison Square is going through. I just want to say for the record, I have nothing against senior citizens, and we have nothing against public housing. The purpose is that it was done wrong. Matter of fact, they didn't even have a meeting with us until I and the residents called for a meeting when we heard about it. We had to hear about it through the newspaper. So that's a very bad attitude to have. And then when we got ready, to call our town hall meeting, the mayor and her people all just barged in and came in. We couldn't have a meeting, so therefore it's been going downtown. We're asking the public to put yourself in our situation. Take yourself out of self, but put yourself in our situation, and let your neighbors or whoever feel how they feel about what we are going through. Because one day it will happen to you. Just keep saying good morning. People have a tendency to do what they want to do. Now, we've asked the council, we've asked the mayor that we did not want it. We asked for a park, okay, but a park don't make money. It's a reason why they want that there. They said that they wanted it there because it was convenient to a store and a hospital, and that's fine. But now HEB has moved. So what are we going to do about that? If we're going to move the project, or we're going to build another HEB? So that's moving. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. But what we got today, still got our health and our strength. We're going to fight against it because simple reason, it's not right.
And that's from the residents in the Edison area. And You know, that's the thing that I want to make sure that our listeners understand what Mr. Trainer has said. That the citizens in the Edison area and the residents, they are for any housing for elderly. They're just not for public housing for multifamily type. If you want to go and build small homes in that area, single homes for single persons
Gotta do it to
and
them.
elderly, put it in there. They'd be more than happy to welcome it. But multifamily complex, no. And we all know the difference between single family and multifamily. If you don't, I'll just give you a overview. What you have with single family, you have rooftops, you have single dwellings, you have a residential type appearance. Along with single family, you have property owners, you have taxpayers, and you have what draws businesses. When you have multi-family housing unit, you don't draw the business. You don't have property owners. You don't have the property taxes that you're going to generate. So it's not conducive to growing your city and encouraging population. Citizens of Port Arthur, you need to ride around Port Arthur and count the number of multifamily complexes in our city of Port Arthur. And go to any other city in the state of Texas. If you find any city have nearly as many multifamily complexes as we have here in our city,
Per capita.
then I would be just excited just to see where that city is and how that city survived. You know, we just can't continue to build public housing. The reason being, the need will always be there because the list does not contain only Port Arthur residents. If people qualify for public housing in another city, another state, they can be placed on the list. So therefore, you will always have a list. But you're not building housing. Once again, you're not building housing for just Port Arthur residents when it's done by the housing authority. When it's done by the housing authority. Now, if a developer build a complex here in Port Arthur, you better believe that the majority of the individuals in there will be residents of Port Arthur because nobody's going to drive to the city for an apartment when they could rent an apartment in their city. They have apartments, but there's a difference between apartments and public housing. You got a tax exempt unit whereby you're not getting the revenue out of it, whereas apartments, they're going to pay the taxes and they're going to generate revenue. You know, you're going to have sales taxes from your different utilities, your gas, water, and all that. So basically, your private developers and your apartment complexes generate funds. Your public housing provide public assistance. We have a caller. Caller, you on there?
Go ahead, caller.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
We're doing fine. How you doing this morning?
Okay, it's not just about public housing, man. It's about the trend of moving everything north of us. We've been taking all the food places, moving all everything north of us. See, I know it's important about housing, But these people are taking these things and moving to their convenience. They're talking about houses. They're taking what's going on around here. They're moving toward the north of us. We need to wake up in this town and get our eyes and mind on the prize because we are being taxed.
And just to expound on it for a few minutes, because you're getting off the top a little bit, but you deserve the response to that. If anyone been around Port Arthur, you know that the leadership and elected officials in the city of Port Arthur determined as the city moved northeast, they would move all businesses and stuff northeast. There were millions of taxpayer dollars, and I'm going to say this so that everyone understands, millions of taxpayer dollars placed in the area on 69 where you see Texas Roadhouse, Lowe's, and all of those places. That was swamp. That was swamp land. The hospital, swamp land. All of this was swamp. The taxpayers, the citizens of Port Arthur, poured millions of dollars into that area as incentives. Incentives for business people and developers to build and develop that area. Once that area was starting to develop and building, we kept pouring money into giving people incentives to bring them that way. Well, what happened is you move all your business from downtown out that way. So the city did, in essence, exactly what you said. But now that you have all of this business out there, you know, our elected officials finally found out that, you know, the money we put in there, it really worked. It brought businesses and it developed this area, and we're getting a lot of revenue from it. But be mindful and watch council, because council said we want to develop downtown area, and we don't want to put any money north of 73. You have to offer incentives. You have to offer. We have a building up here on Stadium Road and Gulfway Drive, the old Safeway. It's a big building. You know, offer someone incentives to go and retrofit that building, put business in it, get it operating. So there are things that we can do as citizens to ensure that our elected officials do what they promise us and start getting away from these special interest groups. Okay, need to pay particular attention to the actions of your council person. You know, and I'm going to just say it straight out that everybody always talk about council members being against, always bickering. Maybe someone needs to stop and listen to what those particular council members are saying, because the same council member, let me tell you about the elephant in the room. Listen to the big white elephant in the room today. People, listen. The same people that are supposed to be the ones against everything, always arguing up, are the only three people that listen to the advice of the city attorney and did what was supposed to be done as an elected official. Those same individuals are the individuals are sitting back with no subpoenas. Okay, those same individuals. It's time the citizens of Port Arthur understand we the people shall have part in the governing of our city. And in order to do so, we need to start looking at our elected officials. Stop waiting till time expires or stop waiting till another election. We need to start holding our elected officials accountable. Reckless conduct should not be
tolerated for no reason. What it is, Antoine?
Well, my question is why? Why would certain members of council, of our city government, be so adamant about building this project now and at that location? Okay, if you're looking out for the good of the people, you do it the right way, you follow due process. If the citizens didn't want it, they went through all the legal ups and downs to stop it, and it should have been stopped. Why did you try to shove it down their throat? Is there personal gain? Is there a personal agenda?
It's the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room. The elephant is simply there's certain individuals personally involved in this. And I sat on council for 2 years. And that was one of the most frustrating part of representing our city and trying to do what's best for our city and our citizens is working hard to move the city forward when you have individuals, all they're interested in doing is meeting somebody in an office behind closed door, or going somewhere and meeting somebody and wanting to take the time to listen to some person who has a agenda of only prospering for themselves. You know, as a council member, I met with numerous business people over the 2 years that wanted to talk to me individually instead of coming before council and talking to all of them. I met with them, but when they asked to meet me as an individual, a little red flag went up in my mind, and it said, "Why you want to talk to me by myself?" Well, I listened to them, and I found myself each time telling them either one or two things I would always say in closing with the luncheon, business luncheon with any developer or business person was, one, I think you have a good idea. I think you need to bring it before our full council and the citizens.
Yes. Yep.
And I'll support it. But I think you need to bring it before the full council and the citizens, because I think this is going to benefit the city and the citizens. Or I would tell them, well, I think it's a good project, but I don't see how it's going to benefit our city or our citizens. And I can tell you, for my part, I wouldn't support it. However, I'm only one member of council. You need to bring it before the full body, because there may be 5 that thinks it's an idea that will benefit the citizens in the city. So I listen, but I wouldn't get caught up with the typical, let's say, BS, for all good words, that they're trying to sell projects and things to us as council people. They're going to enhance their pocket. And in this particular case, this housing project is one of the cases whereby it doesn't benefit the citizens because it violates the rights of the citizens involved in the immediate area in which you planning the development. Anytime the people in it. Notice, this law does not state that 70% of the people have to want this in their area. It doesn't say you need 70%. They say all they need is 20% to oppose it. So what the law is saying is, if 20% of the people in an area is against something, in order for you to pass it, you're going to have to go to a supermajority of your elected officials. And as I explained in the last session, someone may say, oh, what's the difference, supermajority or majority? Well, in the case of Port Arthur Council, City Council, majority and supermajority is very large, because when you always running with a 6-3 vote, 5-4, 6-3, 5-4, that's majority. But a supermajority requires 7 votes. And I tell you, when you require 7 out of 9,
You got something.
you're gonna have somebody that's gonna have to listen, and some people are gonna have to agree. It's no longer, well, we hear you, but we're gonna go on and vote this way anyway. We got the vote. 7 votes will tell the citizens in the city that that is a consensus decision. Now, it doesn't mean that all 7 of them was thrilled about the decision, but what it says is 7 of them knew that in order to move the city forward, they needed to be together. Not because we like one another, because it's for our citizens and the city. So you see, a lot of time, supermajority is the way to ensure you stop the little personal agendas. See, because when you got a personal agenda, a lot of people don't realize, but having served and understand the process, when you have 5 people always agreeing, you probably got 2 of them that really don't care. They just along for the ride. But they want to be with the winning team.
Yeah.
So they'll vote that way and not have a clue on what they're voting for. So we're finna come to a close here. So let me have some parting words first. Reginald.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Doucet, thank the Breeze for allowing me this opportunity just to come to the public and speak. I thank Pro Author for your ears, and I just hope that you will look at it from our point of view. 2 things I'd like to remind you of today at 4 o'clock, City Hall. It's very important that you see how they finna use your tax dollars. Thursday at 2 o'clock, Judge Floyd Court. If you could make it, we appreciate it. If you just get out your prayers, we're grateful. And once again, I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Reginald. Glad to have you here. And once again, Mr. Trainer was speaking on behalf of the residents out in the Edison area. And I want to really commend Mr. Trainer, because in order to be the spokesman, that meant that he had to put in a little of his personal time. He had to go and talk with people when the rest of the residents were out doing what they wanted to do. So once again, residents ought to be proud to have an individual within their community that's going to step forward and spend their personal time to represent and go and be a spokesperson for them. Close it, Antoine.
Well, I would just like to ask the question, how long will it take? How many lawsuits will it take? How much tax dollars will it take before we realize that some of our elected officials are not worthy of our votes?
Well, I tell you right now, I think that this is the beginning with the reckless conduct. And once again, I want to thank you, Mr. Anton, for being here, and I want to also extend the appreciation that you and your group are politically active in our city. And the problem with it is that you all are concerned and you all stay abreast of everything, and people may not like that, because the last thing any crooks want is somebody that's shining a spotlight on them, okay? And you all have done a good job of bringing this spotlight out and having it shown on individuals. And once again, you with the Breeze Radio, KSAP 96.9 on the FM. And once again, Harold Doucet, and it's your city, and I'll see you next Monday. Until then, we're going to let BT take you away.
You'll be listening to the Breeze Radio.